Welcome back to another video. If you like this video, please subscribe to get all future videos as well. In this video, we're going to discuss loneliness, a really difficult emotion to feel. No one wants to feel lonely. They feel that they're all alone. It makes them feel unhappy. It makes them feel unhappy with what's going on in their lives. They feel disconnected from everything outside of themselves, and they feel disconnected to themselves as well. Loneliness is a really difficult emotion, and in this video we're going to tackle it so that we don't have to feel lonely, so that we can feel connected even if we don't have other people around us. Now, you might be feeling lonely for many different reasons. It could be that you've moved to a different area. It could be that you've moved to a different stage in life. It could be that you've outgrown your social friends, or you're growing physically, emotionally, spiritually, and you need to move on from the environment that you have, and you may not have people around you who are like-minded. It could be you're divorced. It could be you've just finished a relationship. It could be many different things. It could be your kids have left home and you're feeling a sense of loneliness. It could be many reasons why a person might be feeling lonely. And as I said, it's a really difficult emotion to feel lonely, because we're social creatures and we want to feel connected. We want to be around other people. And what people tend to do when they get lonely is that they tend to kind of cover up that emotion by trying to spend more time with people, or going to social events, or maybe eating or drinking in an unhealthy way, trying to squash that emotion, because no one wants to feel that feeling of loneliness. And at the end of the day, that's a futile effort to try and cover it up. You can't cover up loneliness unless you deal with the real cause, which is what we're going to discuss in this video, so that we can really own that feeling of feeling connected, of not feeling alone. But if we try and cover up by doing lots of things in the external world outside of ourselves, it doesn't really do or deal with the internal emotion. I always say when there's an internal emotion, we have to deal with it internally instead of just doing lots of actions to kind of cover it up or squash it up. It's a message. It's telling us that something needs to change within. But if we just focus on just a simple idea before we get to the process and the solution to not feel lonely, to feel connected and to be okay even if we're not around other people, let's just realize just one thing, that loneliness cannot be the cause of not being around other people. Loneliness cannot be the reason is because I haven't got someone around me. That cannot be the reason why we're feeling lonely. It cannot be the condition to not feeling lonely is I have to be around other people. Because if that was so, every person who was married or in a relationship or in a workforce in a company, they would feel connected. They wouldn't feel lonely. And I can tell you from my private clinic and lots of workshops that I've run, the amount of couples who tell me that they feel lonely, even though they're living with someone and they may even be intimate with that person, but yet they still feel lonely. So loneliness can still come about even if we have someone who's present in our lives. Even if we have someone that we live with on a daily basis, a person can still feel lonely. Loneliness doesn't go away by just bringing people into our lives. It has to go deeper than that. I mean, I can tell you on a personal level, I'm a divorced guy, and I feel more connected now than I did then when I had someone who I was living with. I felt more lonely then. I feel more connected now than I did then when I was married, because being with someone doesn't solve the problem of feeling loneliness. Loneliness isn't solved by being around people. There's a deeper solution which will set you emotionally free, because as I've always said, if we have to depend on something external to change our internal emotion, then we're enslaved to that external thing. And what happens if that external thing isn't there? Let's just say you have someone in your life who does make you feel connected, right? You're really close to them and they make you feel connected, and you don't feel lonely when you're around them, but when you're not around them, you do feel lonely. Well, then it's kind of a drug to a certain extent. We don't want to be dependent upon external things to feel our internal emotions. We want to feel those emotions without the external environment. We want to have what I always describe as a rich bank of emotions that we can call upon, which we can draw upon whenever we want, because that is what is called being emotionally free, not tied down to something external to ourselves. So what is the solution to the feeling of loneliness? And as we've discussed, the solution isn't necessarily to squash that emotion or to surround ourselves with billions of people. That's not the solution, because people still feel lonely even if they're in the company of other people. So the solution is to go inwards. And I always like to kind of bring it out with the kind of following kind of example. You know, would you spend time with someone who criticized you? Would you spend time with someone who was always seeing the negativity in any event, or was always a pessimist, oh, this isn't going to work out, or you shouldn't do this, and you're never going to get what you want, and they're not going to like you, and this one also isn't going to work? Would you want to spend time with someone like that? Would you want to spend time with someone who always says, yeah, that dress, that suit looks nice on you, but it's not for you? Or they're always finding a reason why something isn't right. They're always finding a reason to put you down. Would you want to spend time with someone like that? Chances are we don't. We want to be we're naturally drawn to people who beef us up, who make us feel good about ourselves. We want to be drawn to positivity. We want to be drawn to positive energy. So the same is true with ourselves. So many people are so self-critical. So many people are so negative and pessimistic in the way that they think, and therefore they don't enjoy being by themselves. They haven't got a problem of loneliness. They just don't want to be with themselves, because when they're by themselves, they're thinking of self-criticism and negativity and how things aren't going to work out for them. It's painful, and they'd rather not feel what they feel as a result of that thinking. So they try and surround themselves with external stuff so they don't have to think about all the self-criticism and all the negativity that they give to themselves. We wouldn't want to be around someone who speaks to us in the same way that we speak to ourselves, right? We're in constant communication with ourselves. Self-communication, self-acknowledgement, emotional intent is the key to everything. The way that we relate life back to ourselves, the way that we give meanings to things, the narrative, the personal story that we give to events, or how life is going to be, and the personal narrative and meaning that we give about ourselves, our worth, is going to determine everything. It's going to determine how we feel and what we do. But ultimately, we're going to feel very lonely if we're by ourselves and we're bashing ourselves up. If we're putting ourselves down, we're not going to want to spend time with ourselves. So the key to loneliness isn't surrounding ourselves with other people, it's surrounding ourselves with positive and balanced and real and truthful self-communication, self-acknowledgement. It's about learning to be comfortable with ourselves. And as soon as we learn to be comfortable with ourselves, we're going to feel less lonely, and we're going to feel more connected and less reliant on external things. Now, of course, I'm not saying therefore we should kind of cut ourselves off, live in our room and work from our room and not meet people. We're social creatures, but it's a balance, like everything in life. Everything in life has to be balanced. If everything's dependent on the external world, well, that's unhealthy. And if you don't leave your room, that's also going to be unhealthy. It's a balance. It's making sure that we're going out to the external world and dealing with the external world from a really healthy place, not from a place of what I call coming from a negative place, meaning I need to be around you because I feel lonely. We want to be around people because they bring joy into our life. We don't want to be around people. We don't want to go into a relationship to fix our problems. We want to go into a relationship to support each other, to be the best we can be. So it's the same too when it comes to loneliness. We don't want to be around people just to fix that feeling so that we don't have to think about those thoughts, that self-criticism. We want to be around people because they bring joy into our lives. They push us further. They support us in a positive way. They bring out the best. They bring out the best both physically, emotionally, and spiritually. But if we're not comfortable with ourselves, then chances are we're going to be around people, or we're going to do other things to squash that emotions in a really unhealthy way. So the key to loneliness, the solution to loneliness, is working internally. And it's not something that changes overnight. It's a life's work. And the more that we work at it, the greater the reward that we reap. Every time that we build a new unit of muscle, of learning to communicate with ourselves, we gain incredible and untold reward. And that comes about in how we feel. And that feeling then will have a massive impact on what we do and the actions that we take. So it's learning to be comfortable with ourselves. It's getting in touch with really, what do we tell ourselves on a daily basis? Are we very strong with ourselves? Do we put ourselves down? Do we have a standard that's too high that we can't live by, so we're constantly bashing ourselves? When was the last time that you praised yourself? When was the last time that you said, well done, great job, gave yourself a pat on the shoulder and said, super impressed? Or do we tell ourselves, that was nothing, anyone could have done that? If I'm really great, if I'm really good, I would have done da-da-da-da. Or if I was really good, I would have done this task 3 years ago. So many people beat themselves up. So and I see this, people beat themselves up. I know when I was going through difficult phases in the divorce proceedings, I made sure that even if I wasn't being my best self in a sense of productivity, I didn't beat myself up because I recognized that it's okay not to be my best productive self because there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of stuff happening, and I was okay with it. I didn't beat myself up. So I was quite okay to be in my own company. But so many people don't do that. So many people are so busy pushing themselves, which is great, but pushing themselves with a lot of negativity. Oh, you're not going to be anything until you achieve this. Oh, you're nothing because you didn't do this 5 years ago. Oh, you're nothing because so-and-so is doing more than you. They're constantly comparing, they're constantly putting down, they're constantly bashing. Excuse me. So no wonder they don't want to be alone. And when they are alone, they feel very, very lonely because they've got no one to spend the time with. Because the person, when they're alone, when they spend that time with, is someone who doesn't feel good about themselves. So the key to loneliness is learning self-acknowledgement. It's learning self-communication. It's shifting our focus. There is so much good in every individual. There is so much good in every individual because everyone does good stuff. Yes, some people do some terrible stuff, some people do some bad stuff, but that doesn't take away from the good stuff that they also do, right? It doesn't mean they should get away with what they've done, I'm not saying that, but everyone has something good that they can that they can focus on, and some people have got some incredibly great stuff that they can focus on, but they get caught up in what they haven't done, what they should have done, what someone else is doing, and they beat themselves up, and therefore they don't want to be in their own company. So the solution to loneliness is not looking externally. It's not going out there, finding more friends or finding more social events or learning a new hobby. That is not, it's important, but that's not the key to loneliness. The key to loneliness is learning to be okay with ourselves. It's learning to be comfortable with ourselves. And, through my divorce proceedings and living alone, it's something that I've really zoned in on and honed in on. And I see it as a gift. I saw it as a great opportunity to really be okay with myself, to really build up that sense of self-communication and self-acknowledgement and compassion. Compassion. So many people are so hard on themselves. They are so tough on themselves. I sometimes say to people, imagine your daughter or son comes to you and they tell you what you're telling yourself, right? What would you say to them? And most people respond will be like, you're doing the best you can, you've got a lot of difficult stuff going on, you just got to focus on how well you're doing and how far you've come, and you've got to keep on focusing on where you want to get to, but have compassion. Most people would tell their son or daughter, or someone they really care about, to have compassion, to take in their environmental factors, the challenges that they have, and stop beating themselves up, but they don't feed that same advice back to themselves. So we have to start doing that. Self-compassion, self-acknowledgement. Stop beating ourselves up. So what I'd like to suggest is a piece of homework. It's an exercise that I think is very, very powerful to start building up this self-acknowledgement that I am okay. Now, of course, you've got my self-worth course, which is on YouTube. You can check out on my other videos, which will also build up a tremendous sense of self-worth. And you've got the book as well, You Are Already Incredible. It's an absolute game changer in self-worth because from my experience, whenever someone's struggling with self-worth, they're normally making this one critical mistake. This one critical mistake is normally holding them back from feeling good about themselves. So you can check out that video or you can buy the book. But if I can suggest just an exercise to get us going, and that is over the next week and going forward, you're going to write down 30 things that you've done. Self-acknowledgement. Stop focusing on what you haven't done, what you should have done, what someone else has done. Start focusing on what you are doing. You opened up the door for someone. That shows that you're a kind person. That shows that you're a thinking person about other people. I got a work project done. What does that show? That shows that you're intelligent, you're capable, you're good at your job. Let's start giving ourselves a credit where the credit is due, in the same way that we would give the same credit to someone that we really cared about. In the same way that you would focus on the good in someone else and you would try and beef them up, we've got to start beefing ourselves up in a true way. I'm not into positive thinking and fluffy thinking. I'm into practical thinking. There are so many things that we do every single day that we do not give ourselves the acknowledgement for, and instead we focus on the things that we're not doing. So that's 30 things. That's 5 things a day. I remember I had a client and they said to me, I can't do 5 things a day. So I said, okay, we had the session at, I think it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I can't think of 5 things every day. I said, walk me through your morning. I think by the time we got to 11:30 in the morning, starting at 9 and got to 11:30 in the morning, we already had 6 or 7 things that they could have written down of self-acknowledgement. But they were ignoring it because they were looking for these incredible things of how they saved someone's life or they stopped World War III. No. Self-acknowledgement is all the small little things of consistency that we do that make the life that we have and is a representation of who we are. I let someone go in traffic. That shows that you care about other people. That shows that you're mindful of other people. I got the job done. I kept my cool with my child who was getting... That shows self-control. It's actually an incredible asset, self-control. No one would give up the ability to be in control. But we just pass it off. Nah, it's not such a big deal. Right? Patience. I was patient with a work colleague. That's an incredible virtue that we just, nah, it doesn't mean anything. I didn't stop World War III. We have to start looking at all the incredible things that we're doing and start building some self-acknowledgement so that we start to realize that we're okay. In fact, we're more than okay, but let's just get to the place that we're okay. And when we start having that thinking process, we start having those thinking themes of positivity, of self-acknowledgement, of praise, we're going to be more okay to be out by ourselves, and we're going to be less dependent on going to the external world to kind of squash that feeling of loneliness. True freedom comes internally. If we get it externally, we're always going to be enslaved. So if we really want to conquer the feeling of loneliness, I can tell you from going on that journey, you will never look back. You will be so grateful. You will be so empowered to just be okay and be comfortable with yourself. But it all starts with self-communication, self-acknowledgement, self-praise. And there is so much that we can do every day that we could focus on that would say so many great things about ourselves, but we just ignore it. Let's start focusing on them because they are there and they are happening. I guarantee you, if I sat down with you and we went through today, we would find more than 5 things. So I'm being easy on you by just suggesting 5 things, but within the next 7 days, start getting 30 things down, 5 things a day. And it's okay if, on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, you got 2 things that are very similar. That shows consistency within that. The fact that you got similar things that are going down, that shows consistency. Consistency is a key to getting stuff done, staying on track. So give yourself that gift of being okay by yourself and start focusing on the whole truth. You're not just what you didn't do. You're more than that. You're also the sum of all the incredible things that you do every day, that you take for granted, and you don't give yourself the acknowledgement that you deserve.